Welcome to Unit 2, Lecture 1.2. Today we are studying music of the Renaissance era. So this is leaving the Middle Ages now, and a lot of really interesting things are happening in the world and, of course, with music. So our objectives are to know the differences between Catholic and Protestant worship music in the Renaissance. We will also identify at least 3 instances of word painting in a Renaissance madrigal. Okay. So during the Renaissance, this is a period of time when there was a rebirth of learning in some respects, and really just an interest in ancient Greek and Roman philosophy, architecture, art. And so all of these ideas are being brought to Italy, and from Italy, kind of expanded and sent off to other places in Europe as well. There was a focus more on humanism, and that meant that the church lost a lot of its power and authority over people, over kind of government. There was also a divide in the Catholic Church. So the reason there is a Protestant branch of Christianity and a Catholic branch of Christianity is it really comes down to one person in particular, Martin Luther, who was a priest in the Catholic Church, or training to be a priest anyway. Fuzzy on some of those details. But he started having issue with some of the beliefs and practices of the Catholic Church, and wasn't able to reform from within, so he ended up leaving and beginning the Lutheran Church, which is Protestant. And then from there, other denominations branched off, Baptist, Presbyterian, all these other places. So that was happening in religion. In discovery, we have people like Christopher Columbus, Ferdinand Magellan, traveling the seas and exploring beyond Europe. There was a lot of, I'm saying this in like air quotes, discovery. It was new places for them anyway, and then of course that also led to conquering people that they came across in the New World, colonialism, and all the things that brings. We also have advances though in science with Galileo, Copernicus. We have Shakespeare during this time. One of the major inventions that was happening was the printing press. And this allowed books and other things to be printed much cheaper and much faster. You didn't have to either hand write everything with scribes or use another really slow means of printing. So it was faster, it was cheaper, and this led to the dissemination of ideas and to greater literacy among the people. And that was invented by Johannes Gutenberg. Okay, we talked a little bit about polyphony and how it evolved in Lecture 1.1. So just to recap, music used in the Catholic liturgy became gradually more complex. For a time, the chant melody was used as a framework, kind of scaffolding, to build on other pieces. But this meant that the chant, the really beautiful, important chant, was, you couldn't really hear it anymore because it was at the bottom of this very extensive, complex polyphonic piece. So in the Renaissance, chants are treated a little bit differently. They are sometimes paraphrased, which means that people will make the rhythms more graceful. They'll smooth things out and make them sound less awkward. But other melodies are still added in some way to create polyphony. Eventually, a balance of complexity and clarity was obtained in Renaissance polyphony, and we're going to hear that in a setting of the Kyrie from the Catholic Mass in just a moment. The Mass is a service that utilizes music in these 5 sections. So we have the Kyrie, which is a simple prayer, the Gloria, which is a longer hymn, the Credo is a list of beliefs, the Sanctus is a shorter hymn than the Gloria, and the Agnus Dei is a simple prayer. So these 5 parts of the Catholic Mass need music. And this was perfect for composers because they could now write a composition that was long. And that was a great challenge for them, which they really enjoyed. Josquin des Près lived from 1450 to 1521. He was born in northern France. And he lived a lot of his life in Italy, different places, working for wealthy people there. He wrote 18 masses, plus many motets. He mastered Renaissance choral music and pioneered new genres, the chanson, which is a French song that is not sacred. It's not tied to a chant melody at all. And the motet, which is a sacred piece, but it's not used for a mass setting. He wrote the Pangalingua Mass, and it's based on a Gregorian hymn and means proclaim the mystery. We're going to listen to playlist number 6, and there's a few things I would like you to listen for. There's going to be 3 sections. We could diagram this as ABA form. So we have Kyrie eleison, which is Lord have mercy. That's section, that's A. Christe eleison is the B section, Christ have mercy. And then there's another A section where they sing Kyrie eleison. Those are the only lyrics. So it's one of the shorter parts of the Mass. Josquin wrote this for 4 vocal parts. So there's 4 people singing, 1 person per part. You're going to hear imitative polyphony. So one singer begins a phrase, and then the next singer begins to sing the same thing, but a little bit later, and starting on a different note. So there's imitation. And then the third person and the fourth person eventually come in as well. And for a little while, they're all at different places in this phrase, singing everything, but then they come together and wind up ending very beautifully at the same time. And so that would be one point of imitation. There's one phrase they're imitating, and then they end together. Then you'll hear the same process again. One person starts, then the next person joins, and the third and the fourth, and they're singing in this beautiful, rich texture, and then they end together. So that's imitative polyphony. As you listen, analyze meter, tempo, and listen to the tone color. How would you describe the sound of these 4 voices and how they interact and blend together? Okay, so hopefully you've had some good thoughts about this, and you heard the polyphony, the imitation, and you could pick out each separate part. Meter is in 3, triple meter, from what I can tell. But if you had trouble discerning that, you're not alone. There is a very strict beat throughout most of this Kyrie, but sometimes it sounds like it's shifting between triple meter and duple meter. So if that's what you were getting, you might actually be correct. There's some ambiguity, it's a weird word, with the actual meter. But the beat is quite consistent, and that has changed quite drastically from the monophonic chant that we heard in the last lecture. The tempo, I would say, is fairly slow. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, da da, right? So we could maybe say andante if you wanted to give that a particular word. The tone color is quite beautiful. A little bit, I don't know if rustic is the right word, but maybe you kind of noticed that there are still some harmonies when all the voices are together that sound more harsh and grating than anything else. And that does begin to change as you go deeper into the Renaissance era. So that is the Kyrie by Josquin Desprez. We're now going to compare that setting of the Kyrie to another version by Giovanni Palestrina. This is playlist number 7. After you listen to this one, I would like you to decide which version you prefer and why. Really compare things like rhythm, meter, tempo. Do the scales sound the same? Is harmony different? How is texture different? And I think especially focus on this last one, consonants and dissonance. Which version has more of the consonant smooth, at rest harmonic sounds as opposed to more harsh dissonant sounds? So which one was more consonant, more smooth and flowing? I believe it was the Palestrina version. It's much harder to separate each melodic line, each vocal part in the Palestrina. They are very closely intertwined and they seem to fit together in a tighter texture. It's kind of the difference between a very closely woven silk, perhaps, and a very loosely woven burlap sack. So there were a lot of changes happening in church music during the Renaissance. A lot of people in the church started to complain about the complexity of polyphony. They said no one can understand the lyrics anymore. The words, the meaning are lost. And so they decided to try to restrict and change the way polyphony was written. Palestrina followed these guidelines, and this is an example of what he was able to create so that it was easier to hear the words. It's still highly polyphonic and still very complex, but the words themselves are much easier to understand. All right, now we're going to discuss word painting. This is very fun stuff. This is matching music to the meaning of the words. So let's say the song was talking about a glitter. Perhaps the word was a glitter that was being sung. How would you want to sing that so that the music itself sounds like glitter? Would you want to be down low playing really long notes? Or would you want to be up higher, perhaps singing something very fast? more like that. So word painting is just having the music match what the words are trying to say and communicate. And this technique really took off in the Renaissance era. It actually got a little out of hand in some cases. I would like you to listen to playlist number 8 and find at least 3 examples of word painting. You can see the lyrics here, and they're also built into the YouTube video. So listen a couple times if you need to. Determine your 3 or more word painting examples, and then we'll go over a couple of them when we come back. Okay, so hopefully you had fun with that. The great thing about this is, so this is a madrigal, and they started in Italy and became popular in England. So you got to hear an English madrigal, a secular piece, still polyphonic. Sometimes there's homophony also in these madrigals. So the word painting examples that I will talk about, when they're singing descending, the notes come down in pitch. Ascending, the notes go up. Attended on by all the shepherds swain, that part is sung by all of the singers, right? First 2 by 2 is 2 singers. And then 3 by 3 is 3 singers. And then leaving the goddess all alone. Those words are sung by one person who is singing all alone. At the end, they're singing Long Live Fair Oriana. And they are singing this in imitation, and it starts to sound like a throng of people praising the virtues of this person. Seems like there might be some I'm forgetting. Maybe you heard some others, but that is word painting in the English madrigal. And that actually, wait, there is more. I thought it was at the end of my slides. Okay, so we've looked at polyphony in the Catholic Church. We've looked at some secular music and the madrigal with word painting. Protestant hymns are extremely different from Catholic mass settings. For one thing, they are sung in the vernacular language. So if it's a German church, they're singing German. If it is an English church, they're singing in English. The form is usually strophic, so repetitive, the same melody used for every verse of text. It's easier to learn, it's easier to sing. These hymns were intended for lay people who did not have musical training, and they were intended for corporate worship, where everyone who was gathered there was singing. It wasn't just a priest or a choir. It was the whole congregation singing together. So go ahead and listen to playlist number 9. And this hymn was written by Martin Luther, actually. And it's just the melody sung in German to the original German rhythm. The modern version of this hymn, A Mighty Fortress is Our God, the rhythm is different. But this is the original version. And it can also be sung with harmony, but this is just the melody, so you can hear that very clearly. So this is a very hearty sounding hymn, very sturdy and strong. And Luther did write other hymns as well. If you have heard the Christmas song Away in a Manger, he actually wrote that. Okay. Now this brings us to Renaissance dance music. Because, of course, church music was huge in the Middle Ages and the Renaissance era. Court music, of course, in the Middle Ages. There's a lot of dancing happening, though, right now in the Renaissance. And for that, you need music. Sometimes the music, well, usually the dances were accompanied by instruments, and some dances were in duple meter, like the pavane and the allemande. Others were in triple meter with different steps, like the galliard and the saltarello. Music for dance needs to have a very clear, obvious beat and meter. That is why it is easy to dance to. If the tempo and the beat is changing all the time, it's super, super confusing. I would like you to watch playlist number 10. It's a video, so it has music and it shows you the dance in costume, Les Bouffons. It's very, very fascinating because I won't spoil it for you. I'll let you watch it. I would like you to determine meter while you watch. And do you notice anything about form? Does it sound strophic, where the same melody is repeated over and over and over again? Or does it sound like a more complex form, perhaps? Okay, so what did you think of that? They were holding swords. I'm really not sure what that's all about, but I love this dance. So hopefully you figured out that it's in duple meter, a slow 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, like that. And it is quite repetitive. That same melody that is introduced in the flute at the beginning keeps repeating, but it does become more complex rhythmically as you go along. So more notes are added, some of the rhythms speed up, and it's embellished very beautifully. And as the melody is embellished, I think I said flute. It's a recorder, so it's another type of woodwind instrument. And then there's a small guitar and an arch lute. That's the instrument with the super long neck. Anyway, as I was saying, as the melody is embellished and made more complex, the steps and the movements that they're doing with the swords also become more complex. So that is just one example of Renaissance dance. When we have in-person classes, I teach my class a Renaissance dance. It's not quite like that one. It's like a round circle dance, a peasant dance. But sadly, we have to miss that because we're not in person. But maybe I will just share that video in the supplementary materials, and that would be really fun. I would like you to watch the YouTube video that is in supplementary materials in Unit 2. It is, oh my gosh, what is it called? Anyway, it's the video about the music composed for this TV show. So go ahead and watch that. He shows all the different instruments that he is incorporating into the soundtrack to give it an authentic Renaissance feel. You get to see the instruments and hear them played. It's quite fascinating. So please do that before you finish Unit 2. And then your assignments are to complete the Middle Ages and Renaissance discussion. Make sure you post your information, your thoughts, and then you're supposed to respond to 2 of your classmates as well. And then you can complete the listening lab number 2 and get your grade back for that. So have lots and lots of fun with this, and good luck with your assignments, and I will see you in Unit 3.